you start out scrapbooking, I encourage you to take a look around. Take a look at different YouTubers. You can always just look up scrapbooking. Take a look at different Facebook groups and Instagrams and TikToks and all the other different platforms where people can share their creativity. Just look around. Observe what you like and take note of it, and take note of what you don't necessarily like. When it comes to scrapbooking, there's really no wrong way to do it. But when you're starting out, I encourage you to copy somebody that you like their style. Me personally, I like a whole bunch of different styles. However, my default is simply embellished. And this layout is an example of what I consider simply embellished. I've got my photos, those are the main focus. Second focus is the paper. I love the paper, pattern paper, and I let it speak for me. And then my clusters, which are the grouping of elements on the page, are very small. They're very simple. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. 3 things in this one, 2 things in that one. Very, very simple. Another example of what I consider simply embellish and letting the paper speak for yourself is this layout. You can see the pattern paper is a really big focus. I used ephemera here to focus in on who the story is about. And then I have 2 small clusters there. So that's my style. That's what you're going to mostly find on my channel, is simply embellished. Finding 3 spots on the page that make you focus in on the photos in the story. There are a lot of other styles as well. Not often, but occasionally I will do 2-page spreads. So this is something that you would do if you've got a lot of photos for one event, or a bunch of photos that you've got left over and you just want to do like an overview of the year, something like that. That's when I would do a 2-page layout. Some people take so many photos that all they can do is a 2-page layout. And that's absolutely fine too. You do what you want to do with your scrapbook, right? This is all about you discovering a new craft or going back to the basics if you're a longtime scrapper, and really thinking about what your style is. Another thing to consider while you're on this journey to talk about the different styles is cut files. So cut files have become very popular. In this instance on my layout, I use the Miss Kate's Cuttables, and she does a fantastic job of layered cut files. So there are a whole bunch of layers to this different bowl, and she does an awesome job of putting those together and designing them. Now you do have to pay for the individual images or a group of the images, but totally worth it. So cut files, maybe you start exploring cut files and seeing if that's something you want to do. Another style of cut file is this. This is a cut file from Paige Evans that I got for free. And what it is essentially an outline, and then you back it with pattern paper. A lot of people like doing this, and words are very popular in this style. There are images as well. But something to think about, maybe you explore looking at getting an electronic die cutting machine. I don't use it as much as I probably should. I more use it for the print and cut, but those machines are very versatile. So if you do want to explore this option, go ahead and do it. That's a different style. Another style that I would consider the opposite of my simply embellished is the extreme embellishment. Now, this is an example of where I filled the areas that were available to fill with stickers, die cuts, and sequins. Really, it's just stickers and sequins. But I would consider this overly embellished, in my opinion, because there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on, right? So, do you love stickers? Maybe stickers are your passion. You really like them. You like the ephemera. My personal opinion is I like the simply embellished, where the paper shines through. But everybody is different. There's no wrong way. Here's another example where I would consider this a little bit over embellished. What I did in this case is I cut out a whole bunch of the pattern paper and I slipped my photo beneath the pattern paper, and then I added embellishments on top. So the main focus of this layout is really these big clusters of flowers and how that is over embellished. But another style is mixed media. Now you'll find a whole bunch of different people on YouTube who like to do mixed media and process layouts, which is fantastic. I dabble in mixed media here and there, and this is one of those instances. I dabbled. You don't need to make it hard. All I did is I took some Distress Oxide, added water, put a piece of plastic in it. It's called the smushing technique, where you just kind of smush the ink around. So I did that with orange and then black behind my two big clusters. So that's something you might consider. Do you like getting dirty? Do you like your hands getting wet? Do you really want to get in the mess of things? There are a lot of different options for mixed media. Here's another example of mixed media. Now, in this instance, I think I used, I can't really remember, but I know I used modeling paste through a stencil, and that's where these fireworks come from. And then I think I used some sprays and some additional things to make things sparkle. So this whole background, there's literally no pattern paper. I created it with mixed media. Now this isn't my favorite layout, but this is also documenting COVID during the 4th of July, so I feel like it's definitely appropriate. And I'm just gonna leave it because yuck. That's what that feels like. So don't forget that if you do have supplies, maybe you colored before and you have a whole bunch of markers, or you have a whole bunch of crayons or colored pencils, maybe you've got some watercolor. You can absolutely use that and create your own background if you wanted to. You don't need to really spend any money on scrapbooking supplies if you want to go the mixed media route, because most likely you have the stuff already at home. So that is 12 by 12. Now you can take those different styles and put them in to something like this, where you can do 8 by 8. You can do 8.5 by 11. Say you have a binder and you just want to start and try it. 8.5 by 11s are the cheapest thing to get. And you probably already have the page protectors for 8.5 by 11. So start there. You probably already have paper in 8.5 by 11. It may not be patterned, but that's okay if you want to do the mixed media route. You can do all of those different styles in the different sizes. So this is an example of 8 by 8. I love this size. I like the fact that it's square. So as we move into the different sizes, think about, do you want things to be in rectangles or do you want them to be in squares? I personally like squares, and I've learned that about myself over the past couple years. So here's some examples of how you can take a big layout and put it into a small format. And you can see the difference in the size here. That's a good comparison. Like, you take off a good 4 inches here and here. So you do have to be cognizant, okay? How many photos do I have? Do I have just one picture that really stands out and I want to tell a story about? Okay, that's your 8 by 8. You can get more photos on this size of a scrapbook, but you have to then print smaller, right? So I think this is like a 2 by 3 and that's a 3 by 4. So just be aware that most places that print photos print in 4 by 6. So you'll have to get creative about how you can do a smaller size. So there's an example of where I put a 4 by 6 on each. And then this is like a 2 by 2. So that's an 8 by 8 size. Now there are other styles of scrapbooking too, where I would more consider it junk journaling than scrapbooking. But some people call it scrapbooking, and I can see why. So this is kind of my junk journal. It is a 5 6/8 by 8 1/4. And I can just do whatever I want. So some people consider this scrapbooking, where they've taken an image and they put it on the paper, they stamped some stuff on the background, and then they call it good. And I call this more mixed media junk journaling kind of type deal. You can add paper to this. You can do a whole bunch of different stuff. Here's an example where I added paper, added a photo, and then told a story. you can take these smaller sizes, right? Like this is even smaller than a 8x8 size, and still tell a story. This might be the cheapest way to go because you really don't need paper. You just need a notebook. Now, if you're going to do something like mixed media or anything like that, I would get a notebook that's specifically designed for this, so the pages are thicker. You don't want like copy paper, because that would be a horrible idea. It would wrinkle right away. This paper is probably 110 pound, just to give you an idea. But that's my notebook. I just decided I was going to try it one day. Another size that you can get is called a traveler's notebook. So this is even smaller than this other book here, but it's still the same height, so 8.5. This is 4 1/4 by 8 16. So what I've done with this notebook, you've probably seen this before, is created a book tracker. So I've added paper, added some washi, done some stamping, that kind of thing. You don't have to do any of that, but you can just use these traveler size notebooks to document your stories, print your pictures super small, or don't print pictures at all and just journal. So, going back to the basics and talking about different styles and different sizes, I hope this sparks some ideas about where you want to start in this journey. If you have any questions or comments or like, okay, I wish you had covered this subject in your Back to the Basics series, please let me know in the comments. I will try my hardest to help you guys out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.